When you think of a guy who named a lot of cities after himself, the first person that comes to mind is Alexander the Great. There are memes and comedy skits about him naming every city Alexandria. Plutarch claims that he founded or renamed over 70 places, so he's definitely the man with the most city names to his own. Or is he? See, humility wasn't exactly in high regard during the classical antiquity, and naming a city after yourself is one of the best ways of self-aggrandizement. Alexander wasn't the only ancient person with a huge ego. His own generals continued this tradition, so now there is a whole bunch of ancient Seleucias and Antiochs scattered across the Middle East. They, however, never replicated the success of Alexander and struggled to reach double digits in city naming. There were very few ancient titles which granted the ability to rival Alexander's toponymic achievement, but one of them was that of the Roman Emperor. And it just so happens that the first Roman Emperor had the time, the resources, and enough of a penchant for self-promotion to realize this ambition. In this video, we're going to figure out the exact number of places named after Alexander and Augustus, and determine which one of them gets the title of the greatest city namer of all time. So how do we do it? Of course, we could just count the places called Alexandria and Augusta and be done with it, but this is a very lazy and faulty approach. Many of these cities weren't actually named after the same Alexander and Augustus. There is no shortage of Alexanders in medieval and modern history, and quite a lot of them lent their name to some city. America also throws a huge wrench in this plan, because the Americans love to name their places after others. There are American Alexandrias which are named after other American Alexandrias, which, in turn, are named after God knows which Alexander, and American Augustus aren't much better. These chains of naming are nearly impossible to disentangle. That's why we're only going to count the places named by the men themselves, or by the people who knew them personally. This discards a large number of Alexandrias and Augustus, but it is more fair to only include the instances on which the two had some direct impact. So first off, Alexander. Alexander the Great is the most famous Greek of all time. His glorious victories and conquests are central to Hellenic national pride. He has numerous statues and dedications throughout Greece, so there is no wonder that the country with the most cities named after him is Afghanistan. Yeah, Greece has just a single town named after Alexander, and it was only renamed in the 1970s, so it doesn't count. Afghanistan, on the other hand, has 5 more or less certain Alexandrias, and potentially another 2. Keep in mind that we don't actually know the exact locations of any of the Hellenistic settlements in this region. The only certain one is modern-day Ai-Khanum, but its ancient name is still disputed. However, going with the most probable conjectures gives us the following list. The city of Herat used to be Alexandria Ariana. Fera used to be Alexandria Praftasia. Alexandria Arachosia was somewhere near modern-day Kandahar, Alexandria Caucasiana near Bagram, and Alexandria Opiana near Ghazni. The 2 less certain Afghan Alexandrias are Alexandria in Sakastani and Alexandria on the Oxus. The first one could have been near modern-day Zaranj, and the second near Ai-Khanum. Pakistan has the same high total estimate of 7, with 6 Alexandrias and 1 Port of Alexander. However, the exact location could only be determined for 4 of them. Alexandria Bucephalos was built on the river Jhelum in Kashmir. Downstream from it was Alexandria on the Indus, near the modern-day city of Uch. Another major city was Alexandria in Orietai on the Arabian Sea coast, and there was also a port of Alexander in the mouth of the Indus. This last one may not have been an official name, but it's mentioned enough times in the sources to count it in. In addition to these 4, there are 3 whose exact locations are unknown. Alexandria of the Sogdoi, Alexandria on the Akesines, and Alexandria Soriana may have been different names of the ones that were already mentioned, or may have been different sites later destroyed by the rivers on which they stood. If I had to make a guess, I'd say that the capital of the Sogdoi is the aforementioned site near Uch, and the remaining 2 are the same city that used to exist somewhere along the river Chenab. To get a more credible version, we'd have to wait for the archaeologists to come up with some new findings. For the last Alexandria in this region, we'd have to go across the Pakistani-Indian border to the city of Amritsar. This used to be the site of Alexandria on the Hephasis, the easternmost point of Alexander's campaign. Here his army mutinied and refused to march further. This means that there are no Alexandrias further east, so quite like the conqueror's army, we will now be turning back west. There are 3 more Alexandrias in Central Asia, evenly split between Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. These are the better sourced ones. Their mentions appear in the writings of Arrian, Pliny and medieval Islamic scholars. Alexandria Eskhate translates to Alexandria the Furthest. It was located in the mouth of Fergana Valley, where the Tajik city of Khujand stands today. Alexandria in Margiana later became the city of Merv. In the 9th century, the Abbasid Caliph Al-Mamun made Merv the de facto capital of the Muslim world. At the beginning of the 13th century, Merv is estimated to have had around 500,000 residents, but the Mongol invasion wiped out almost its entire population. Today, its ruins are located near the Turkmen city of Mari. The last Alexandria in the post-Soviet republics is the least certain of the 3. Alexandria Tharmata is associated with the Uzbek city of Termez. The same location had been proposed for Alexandria on the Oxus, and it's still unclear which is which, or if they were the same city. There is a good probability that at least one of these sites was an Alexandria, so I'm going to count this one as a certain. The only Alexandria in modern-day Iran is Alexandria Kermania. There are several sites proposed for its location. The most commonly cited is the village of Gulashgird, north of Hormuz. But this is not the only place in Iran that used to be named after the great conqueror. There is also a city of Mashhad, which was known as Sana'abad in the Middle Ages. Islamic scholars attributed its founding to Alexander. A line from Pliny the Elder places a city called Alexandropolis somewhere in this region, so that's enough evidence to count it in. Iraq has one of the first Alexandrias, one of the last Alexandrias, and one very uncertain Alexandria. The first one is Alexandria in Mygdonia, which was founded or renamed shortly after the Battle of Gaugamela. Another Iraqi Alexandria, the so-called Sasiana, was established 7 years later upon the conqueror's return from India. Later it became known as Charax, the capital of the ancient kingdom of Charasini. The uncertain one is Alexandria on the Palakopas. Arrian writes that in 323 BC, Alexander sailed 800 stades down the Euphrates to the Palakopas and established a city. There is no exact location for this one, and it is very likely to be the aforementioned Charax. Turkey has 3 more Alexandrias. Alexandria by the Latmus, aka Alinda, modern-day Kerputslu. Alexandria near Issus, aka Alexandretta, modern-day Iskanderun. And Alexandria Troas, whose only remnants are the ruins near the coast of the Aegean. This last one is the youngest city on the list, because it was founded only after Alexander's death. Antigonus established the city in 306 as Antigonea Troas, but when Lysimachus took it in 301, he renamed it Alexandria. There are only 2 places remaining, the first of them and the greatest of them. The exact location of the first town founded by Alexander is unknown, but it should be somewhere in Thrace in modern-day Bulgaria. Its name, Alexandropolis, was chosen by analogy with Philippopolis, a town founded by Alexander's father in the same region. Could Philip have guessed that this was the beginning of a lifelong obsession? We may never know. And of course, the crowning jewel of Alexander's legacy is the Alexandria, in the far west of the Nile Delta, probably the only city on this list that doesn't need an introduction. It is also the only one that retained the original name. Iskenderun in Turkey also kind of fits this bill, but only if we allow for translations. This gives us a total of 22 certain places named after Alexander, and 6 uncertain ones. That's way lower than Plutarch's figure of 70, but Plutarch has kind of a reputation for making stuff up for the sake of story. The main problem in restoring the record of all Alexandrias is the fact that so many of them are in ruins. Settling near the Great Steppe turns out to be detrimental for the longevity of your settlements. Now let's go to Augustus. The go-to city name for the first Roman emperor was obviously Augusta. If America was in the count, Augustus would have had a big advantage. The number of places called Augusta in the United States is 31, which is quite ridiculous. For comparison, the number of Washingtons is only higher by 4. However, we've laid out the rules in the beginning, so we'll be staying in the Old World. Also, as you may know, the word Augustus became the title of every subsequent Roman emperor, so we'd have to discard the places named after the later ones. There are quite a lot of these, like Ulpia Augusta Traiana, which was dedicated to Trajan, or even Isca Augusta in Wales, which was named after the Second Augustan Legion. Just like the Alexandrias named after different Alexanders, these aren't going to count towards Octavian's total. This leaves us with a list of locations, almost all of which are in Europe. The main hotbed of the Augustan settlements is the Iberian Peninsula. The emperor had to settle a lot of veterans after his Iberian Wars, so a lot of the regional names bear some reference to the events of that period. Asturica Augusta in Spain and Bracara Augusta in Portugal are named as such because they were built on the lands of the conquered Astures and Bracare people. Augusta Emerita was the settlement of the veterans who were discharged as emeriti, that is, completed their whole service with distinction. Lucus Augusti, which today is the city of Lugo, simply means the forest of Augustus. Astigi and Tuci were native settlements before the Romans came, so when they became major military towns, they were renamed to Colonia Augusta Astigi and Colonia Augusta Tucitana. The last two Augustan settlements in Iberia have unique names. Caesar Augusta is today's Saragossa, while the location of Augusta Briga hasn't been determined yet. I am putting it near the town of Mura de Agreda as the most probable spot. France has 3 Augustus and 1 Augustadanum. Soissons, Saint-Quentin, and Nîmes used to be Augusta Suessionum, Augusta Viramanduorum, and Augusta Nemausus respectively. The Roman city of Augustadanum is known today as Uton. The German Augustus are some of the most prominent. Trier and Augsburg both started as Roman military settlements in Germania. Augusta Treverorum and Augusta Vindelicorum were crucial both for the conquest plans and for the defense of the frontiers. The fortifications continued along the Rhine and Danube to modern-day Switzerland with the fortress of Augusta Raurica. Today, the site is situated between the villages of Augst and Kaiser Augst, both of which bear names reminiscent of the Roman past. The 2 Italian Augustus are Aosta and Turin. They used to be military colonies that guarded the Alpine passes. There is also Augusta Perusia, which is known today as Perugia, but the exact date of its renaming is unknown, so we're going to put it into the uncertain category. 3 more Augustus are in the Balkans. After the conquest of Dalmatia, the Romans founded an island settlement on the Adriatic called Insula Augusta. Today it is the Croatian municipality of Lastovo. The 2 Greek Augustus are Patras and Philippi, which were pre-existing cities but were established as colonies for the Roman veterans like many others on this list. The last Augusta is actually the place we have already visited. At around 13 BC, Alexandria Troas became Colonia Alexandria Augusta Troadensis. But this still leaves Augustus one short of Alexander's score, so the Macedonian becomes the winner of this contest. Or does he? Augustus wasn't the only name of the first Roman emperor, was it? His full imperial title was Imperator Caesar Augustus. He inherited the title Kaiser or Caesar from his adoptive father in 44 BC and had been using it as his own ever since. This means that the toponyms derived from Caesar may also be contributing to Octavian's total. But same as the Augustus, some of the Caesarias may have been dedicated to other people, including the later emperors and the conqueror of Gaul himself. Unlike the Augustus, most of the Caesarias are outside of Europe. There is Norba Caesarina in Spain and Caesaramagus in France, but both of them were named after the elder Gaius Julius. Another Caesaramagus is modern-day Chelmsford in England, but this one was built in AD 60, so the Kaiser in its name was probably Emperor Nero. In the Middle East there are Caesarias dedicated to Claudius, Tiberius, Germanicus and Hadrian. My favorite is the so-called Caesarea Magna, today's town of Shaizar in Syria. It wasn't called Caesarea in antiquity, but when the Crusaders heard its native name Sedzar, they mistook the settlement for Caesarea in central Anatolia, the birthplace of Saint Basil. However, there are still Caesarias that can be attributed to Augustus with certainty. 2 of them are in Israel. Caesarea Maritima was founded by King Herod and named as such to appease Octavian before he was actually known as Augustus. His son had done the same with Caesarea Philippi, modern-day Banias. Turkey has multiple Caesareas, but the only one I can certainly attribute to Augustus is Caesarea Antiochia. Previously known as Antioch, this settlement in Pisidia was rebuilt during the reign of Augustus and given the name Colonia Caesarea. The final city on this list is in Algeria. Today it is called Churchill, but in antiquity its name was Eol, until Numidian king Juba renamed it to Caesarea Mauritania in honor of Augustus, who helped him win a civil war. And thus, unknowingly, Juba reciprocated by helping his benefactor win an internet contest 2000 years later. Because with 25 locations to his name, Augustus wins the title of the greatest city namer of all time. Or maybe he doesn't. To be honest, he and Alexander are too neck and neck to settle this dispute definitively. Some extra information or archaeological finding can easily tip the balance one way or another. And if we were to go with grand totals, rather than just the cities named around their lifetime, the two colossi of antiquity would have to contend with the likes of St. Francis of Assisi, George Washington, and Queen Victoria, all of whom have over 50 cities named after themselves. So, if you think that some other historical figure should have been in this contest, or that I forgot to add some places that would have altered the outcome, feel free to tell me in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching to the end, and I will see you in the next one.